Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. I'm Dr. Nirvani, and this is the place where we explore breaking past the limits of the ordinary and living from a place of sacredness and extraordinary potential. Today, I'd like to discuss something that has profoundly shifted my perspective over the last few weeks, and this is incorporating rituals into my life. I've just returned from an amazing trip in Southeast Asia, and what I experienced there left a permanent imprint on my spirit, to be completely honest. There's something so profoundly humbling about being in a culture where their connection to divinity isn't reserved for special occasions or holidays and is so freely and openly shared in a community setting. It's woven into everything that they do, from the way that they begin their day, to how they share their meals, to the small altars that are in front of every home almost, and shop and business and busy street. I witnessed people lighting incense with reverence for spirituality, religion, and God, bowing in silence and pausing to honor the unseen forces in their reality before taking action. This wasn't performative and it wasn't a show. This was people in another part of the world who just embody honoring divine spirit, God, source connection as a form of practice in their life. This is a way of life for them. And in that space, it was incredibly powerful and reflective for me. And it allowed me to remember something. I remembered how powerfully life shifts when we make ritual a non-negotiable in our life. While I was on the trip, I competed in the World Yoga Championships, which were held just outside of Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And I overall placed 19th worldwide. And while I was there, I gained the title of Canadian National Yoga Champion. 1 year ago, I had zero experience with competitive yoga. The idea that I would not only compete on a world stage, but that I would place 19th in the world and become the top-ranked yoga yogini in Canada was just a very far-fetched idea. And since my trip and throughout the trip, I have been reflecting on all of the things that came together so that this could actually become a reality for me, and particularly in such a short period of time, less than a year, as I said. And of course, there was discipline, and of course, there was technique. But if I'm being truthful and honest with myself, and as I say this, what brought me to that stage and what carried me through my performance and what opened the door to a deepness in my yoga practice was ritual. It was my spiritual devotion to the practice and to honoring myself and my connection with the divine forces that I know are around me and moving through me. And in the way that I approached my routine overall and the postures that I was developing, I used the practice that I was doing and the coaching that I was getting as a form of active prayer, if you will. And in not necessarily striving to win, but allowing myself to surrender to something greater than just my physical being and letting go of my physical limitations. Each day I entered my practice not just to master movement, but to allow the divine force that is not only acting around us, but if we allow it to, acts through us into my body and into my postures, into my poses, and really allow myself to express that as yoga. In that space of reverence, strength actually developed. And so not only did I end up in a place where I was developing strength and flexibility, but I was also operating from a place of really honoring the divine power that is, if we allow it to be, innately accessible to all of us. And what at one time, not too long ago, seemed impossible became almost inevitable. We live, and when I say we, I mean our Western culture, lives obsessed with doing, with hacking, with productivity, with accomplishment. And my time in Asia allowed me to witness a reverence for just being. And I say just, but I really shouldn't. A reverence for being, a reverence for stillness, and really for honoring sacredness in the simple things in life. And this made me realize the key to becoming superhuman isn't in doing more. It is really being intentional, and it's anchoring our actions into rituals. And by quieting the mind and giving ourselves space and allowing for possibilities that, as I said not too long ago, may have sounded and seemed impossible. And in choosing to align with a higher power before we act, speak, move, it really opens up a connection and the ability for us to flow through life rather than move or do life, which is a more Western or aggressive approach to accomplishment. And what I saw was people building prayer into their life and not using this as a source of performance for anyone, but it was really reserved as a part of their life and an expression of who they were out into the world. And in a practice of alignment is really an act of remembering who you truly are. To be able to say, I'm not doing this alone. I am not responsible entirely. I am simply acting in conjunction with the force of the divine consciousness that powers the universe, which how empowering is that idea? And that by acknowledging and allowing that divinity and that power to work through me, move through me, and open myself up to the idea that I have access to that, it's transformative. And looking back, when I decided to make prayer and ritual foundational in my yoga practice, it really did transform everything. And not only the results and the outcomes, but my own experience of myself in my body and my understanding the power of surrender. And in no longer being obsessed with or chasing perfection, I started moving with a deeper presence and an acknowledgement of the divine force that was empowering me to move the way I was. And I would say that presence eventually developed into what I felt was a power within myself. So my message to you is that if you want to become someone who achieves what sounds or seems unimaginable, whether it's physically in your body or in your business, in your art, or in your relationships, you have to shift your perspective from force and willpower to allowing and alignment. And the idea that you need to grind through and push yourself through rather than just grounding yourself in the power of who you are is truly a paradigm shift, but also a personal development shift. Because when you acknowledge how powerful you are without force, that power is already innately a part of you and you just have to tap into it, you have to access it. You make your body and you make your life your temple. And you can start to revere your body and your life in a way that goes beyond just showing up on a yoga mat or sitting on a meditation cushion. This is really about you honoring the divinity of your life and who you are. So I invite you to ask yourself today, what in your life could you be bringing more intention to and more sacredness to? And if you did so, could really turn into a beautiful ritual. So could your morning routine that you're currently already doing become a beautiful ritual for you? Could a few long, slow breaths in the morning act as a way for you to pray to yourself and to bring the power of the divine force of God or source consciousness into your life? And could any of the ambitions that you currently have be tied to a force greater than you and a purpose greater than just serving yourself? And those are some questions that I would invite you to just ask yourself to see if there's a way for you to connect a deep intentionality to the things that you're already doing. Because when we start to do this in our life, pathways that you can't even really imagine right now, they start opening up. And when I say that you develop this unimaginable form of being, life, and purpose in the world, that's where it comes from. It comes from really acknowledging that it's even possible. And this is what I saw when I was in Asia. And really, when I think about it, I do now believe this is what brought me to the championship stage and allowed me to perform on a world stage and really allowed me to develop a practice and develop as an athlete, not by pushing and forcing and grinding through my yoga practice, but by really surrendering and allowing and honoring who I am and my place here on earth. And from that place of surrender, I found strength in a way that I hadn't found it previously. And my connection allowed me to develop clarity, and from ritualizing certain things, which really allowed me to honor those moments in my day, I started to see results in my reality. So my invitation to you, if you're listening right now, is to choose one thing in your day and make it sacred. And this is something that you're already doing, so make it easy for yourself. Pick something that you do anyways every day. Maybe it is light a candle before you sit down at your desk at work, or light an incense, or when you first get into your car before you start your drive, say a short but very intentional prayer for your day, or take a few nice, slow, deep breaths before you start speaking to anyone in the office. I think asking for guidance, asking your higher self for guidance, and waiting for the answers that come is also incredibly powerful and is a way to develop your own intuitive sense of who you really are and what really aligns for you. So my message here is really let the divine move through you and not just around you, because it's here, it's present, and it's active. And when you allow divinity into who you are, into your life, your reality starts to shift, and things that seem impossible become not only possible, but your reality. You don't just become better, you become everything you have been meant to be, everything you are meant to be. We become clear vessels for something greater than just ourselves. And in doing so, we operate in the world and we put out into the world pieces of ourselves and parts of our own mission and purpose that otherwise wouldn't be projected. So thank you for being here and for listening to these thoughts and allowing me to share this and this path that I've been on for the last month and a half since being in Southeast Asia and now being back. And may your rituals root you. May your practice elevate you and allow the divine to lead your life in a way that you haven't even considered to be possible. Your spirit is waiting for you to surrender to your own superhumanity. If this has been inspiring for you or has lit a fire within you to develop your own rituals, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening today.